Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome, dear learners, dear students. We were discussing about the production technologies, and specifically now we are discussing the parental dosage forms. So far, we have discussed the preliminary aspects of the parental dosage forms, and now let us discuss and elaborate some more things about the parental production technologies. So, welcome in this lecture. As far as this lecture is concerned, after learning this lecture, you will be able to understand types of parental products available and their basic properties like particle size, syringeability, injectability, injectable suspensions, and globule size in case of injectable emulsions. You will be able to understand the methods used in the preparation of different parental products. What is going to be our lesson plan? We will be covering first of all the drug injections, injectable solutions, injectable emulsions, suspensions and dry powders. Then we'll be covering the characteristics and properties of different types of parentals, methods of preparations of injectable solutions, dry powders, suspensions and emulsions. Now let us discuss what are the types of parental preparations, as we have discussed a little bit earlier also, but just to remind you that there are major three categories. You can see small volume parentals, large volume parentals and modified release parentals or injectables. In these small volume parentals, the volume of injectables is less than 100 ml, less than 100 ml, remember this thing. And in the large volume parentals, it is more than 100 ml. While in case of modified release injectables, or you can say sustained release or controlled release, these injectables are delivered by routes other than IV generally in case of these modified release dosage forms. Now let us discuss the solution as a dosage form for delivering the injectables. These are ready to use preparations or liquid concentrate to be diluted suitably, and they are packed in ampoules of vials containing suitable antimicrobial agents. Aqueous vehicles are there, and what are these vehicles? WFI, water for injection, and SWFI, sterile water for injection. There may be non-aqueous vehicles also. They are generally water miscible vehicles. So aqueous vehicles and non-aqueous vehicles, there are two types of vehicles for solution types parental dosage forms. Now let us discuss in brief how we manufacture or prepare the solution type parental dosage forms. First of all, you will have to weigh accurately the exact quantity of API, active pharmaceutical ingredient. Then you will add suitable excipients. Then adjustment of pH and isotonicity. You can say the tonicity and the pH you will adjust them. Then filtration, sterile filtration is done using 0.22 micron membrane filter. Then final sterilization is done by suitable method, and at last packaging and labeling is done. So this is the gross preparation method by which we can prepare the solution type injectables. Sterile filtration is used for thermolabile substances followed by the filling, because the thermolabile substance cannot withstand the dry heat sterilization or moist heat sterilization. So that's why the sterile filtration is done, and for this 0.22 micron membrane filter is used uh, as filter head. Especially in case of proteins, it is used. Membranes such as hydrophilic polyvinylidene difluoride, hydroxyl modified hydrophilic polyamide membranes are used. Thermostable drugs are sterilized by the autoclaving, you can say dry heat sterilization you can perform, or moist heat sterilization you can perform. So there is no issue with the thermostable drugs. So you will have to take care of the thermolabile substances, especially like proteins, hormones, which are susceptible for degradation in the higher temperature. Small volume parenterals, these are ampoules, solution, liquid filled concentrate, vials, plastic blow fill seal ampoules, pre-filled syringe, and needle-free injections. So these are the small volume parenteral, and you are familiar with these parenterals in general. Okay. Now moving to the suspensions. Parenteral suspension is the dispersion of solid into the suitable vehicle, water or oil, depending on the solubility of API. Suspensions are one of the most difficult preparation of parenterals. Remember this thing. Solution is very easy. You just mix it, adjust the pH tonicity, and done. Sterile. Filtration you do, and then it's okay. But suspension cannot be administered by IV route, as it needs to fulfill the requirement of syringeability and injectability. These are the two terms which we have discussed a little bit earlier also in the pre-formulation case also, and you might be aware of this thing, but we'll discuss this thing. In the ideal requirement for the parenterals, there must be maintenance of particle size distribution. Particle size must be distributed uniformly. We cannot have uneven distribution of particle size in the formulation. Zeta potential must be maintained to maintain the stability. Rheological properties, stability of the suspension sometimes increases on increasing the viscosity. So by adding some amount of protective colloids or compounds such as sorbitol, you can improve the viscosity, and thereby you can improve the rheological property, and thereby stability of the suspension can be maintained. Surface activity is to be maintained with the help of adding the wetting agent, so that the contact angle is ascertained to improve the wetting of these solid particles in suspension. Until the effective wetting is there of solute particle, the drug formulation will be a failure. In suspensions, parenteral dosage forms, solid content ranges from 0.5 to 5%, but may go as high as 30% in some antibiotic preparations. Redispersibility is one of the most required phenomena, most required criteria, most required property. The cake formation must be prevented, or may be prevented, by the use of surface active agents which may reduce the interfacial tension between the particle and the vehicle. For example, polysorbate 80 we can use, lecithin we can use, hydrochlorides like sodium carboxymethyl cellulose, they increase the effect of surfactant. So redispersibility we have to ensure, so that the cake formation is just is redispersible. But whenever because the suspension may may tend to form the cake, the particle may have the coalescence tendency. Okay, so it should be easy to redisperse whenever we are talking about a suspension type parenteral dosage form. So let us discuss the method of preparation. That what you'll do, you'll take this soluble that component vehicle, you will add, filter it, then the heat distillation is done. Thereafter you will transfer the content to the container and sterile antibiotic powder is added here. Evaluation is done and then aseptic packaging is done. Evaluation like leakage test you can perform. Okay. So aseptic packaging is done. This is the simple method. In the another method, there may be two different type of methods. In this two different second method, vehicle preparation and filtration is done. And thereafter, the drug and the co-solvents are added into that vehicle preparation. So vehicle plus drug and the co-solvent solution is crystallized for the drug. So crystallization of drug is there in this step. Then separation of crystal is done. Thereafter, the repetition is done until the co-solvent is removed completely. You will keep on doing this thing until the co-solvent is removed completely. And thereafter, at the last, aseptic packaging is done. So by these two methods, we can prepare the suspensions, parental suspensions. Okay. Now let us discuss stability and evaluation of parental suspensions. Parental suspensions must have the injectability, good injectability. Freeze-thaw cycle, they must withstand the freeze-thaw cycle, the temperature fluctuations, they must withstand. Resuspendability they must have if they are formulated in the suspension dosage form. Crystal growth must be controlled. Particle size measurement, zeta potential determination, and viscosity. These are the things in which we can ensure the stability by evaluating these parameters with respect to these things: injectability, freeze-thaw cycle, resuspendability, sedimentation volume, crystal growth, particle size measurement, zeta potential determination, and viscosity. Got my point? Now moving to the emulsion. So we have talked about the solution and we have talked about the suspension now. Now what is the TAN? TAN is for the emulsions. Emulsions, again we know they are the biphasic dosage forms. They are milky white in appearance. Average globule size of an emulsion is generally 1 to 5 microns, and globules larger than 5 microns should be less than 0.05% of the total volume of the emulsion. Got my point? Remember these things because they are many times asked in the GPAT examinations. For example, propofol and oil soluble vitamins, these are some examples which can be formulated in emulsions. And I request all of you to get back to your notes with all the examples of emulsion dosage forms. So these may be OYW, oil in water emulsion, and or maybe water in oil emulsion. Okay, depending upon what is the continuous phase. If the continuous phase is water, then it is oil in water. If continuous phase is oil, then it is water in oil emulsion. Okay, these basic concepts we have studied earlier also in our CUTEX 1. In emulsions, as a parental dosage form, particle size should be within the permissible limits as to prevent the formation of emboli in the blood vessels and preventing the rancidity of oil phase. Because the oil may get rancid, so you will have to control the particle size. Stability, as sterilization should not affect the stability of the drug. The stability is a very crucial issue. Okay. So sterilization, if you are doing, it should not affect drastically into the stability of the emulsion because they are of a biphasic dosage form. They can easily be separated. So you will have to take care of these things, that anything does not destroy the integrity of these biphasic dosage form. Small amount of some stabilizers like gelatin, dextran, and microcrystalline cellulose are added to stabilize the emulsion. So emulsifying agent you can also add, and some stabilizing agent you can also add. Obviously, without emulsions you cannot prepare the emulsions. You may have to add some more stabilizers apart from emulsifying agents also. Lipid emulsions for parenteral, like fat emulsion we call them sometime, they are very widely accepted for the patients who are unable to take food themselves. They are called parenteral nutritions. Parenteral nutritions are delivered through the large volume parenterals. They consist of a suitable oil, an emulsifier, and a balanced blend of amino acids in a continuous phase of distilled water. The composition of the emulsifier is important as it decides the overall stability of the emulsion. So the composition you will have to take care. These emulsions are injected into the vein and they provide a means of administering the nutritive fluid to the patient. The patients who are unconscious, who cannot take the drug orally, they are given the parenteral nutrition through, you can say, the emulsion dosage forms. Parenteral emulsion. They are called lipid emulsion. Now, perfluorochemical emulsions. What are these? These types of emulsions utilize perfluorocarbon oil, like oxygen carriers these are, and emulsifier pluronic F68 was used in the original formulation when it was started earlier. Hydroxyethyl starch and various salts in water are used there. The perfluorocarbon oil is the oxygen carrier. That is, the oil can dissolve oxygen. Oil can dissolve oxygen and carry it through the body. These emulsions have a great deal of potential for the following reasons. Number one, non-availability of compatible blood. And number two, in case of bloodless surgery and for the treatment of various diseases. So perfluorochemical emulsions may be very important when you are not getting the compatible blood, when you want to perform the bloodless surgery. So these are the of utmost importance when you are requiring these things. Okay. When we are calling about the emulsions, liposomes are emulsified spherical vesicles composed of a phospholipid bilayer with an aqueous inner face. There is an aqueous inner face and then lamellarities of lipids are there. These drugs can be incorporated. What happens then? The drug can be incorporated either into the liquid phase or the aqueous phase or non-aqueous phase. So just when you add some in a oil, when you add some water globules and you shake it, a preparation sort of that globule sort of thing is called liposomes. Okay, so these are hydroalcoholic vesicles basically, you can say. Okay. And what happens that alcohol layer, when the alcohol is removed, the thin film is deposited of lipid which is hydrated and then it forms the liposomes. After the liposomes are one of the kind of emulsions uh, which may be used for parenteral dosage forms. So, though we are not discussing it in great detail, just introducing you because you have already discussed it. We have already covered it in our undergraduates. Dry powders. These types of preparations are more suitable for those drugs which are too unstable either physically or chemically in an aqueous medium. The reconstituted product is usually aqueous solution and occasionally it may be in aqueous suspension form. Say for example, ampicillin trihydrate. Do you know? Do you remember many of the formulations you might have seen the injectable they are in powder form? You have to reconstitute. You will add sterile water for injection there. They are supplied with the water for injection rather for reconstitution because they are unstable in liquid phase. That's why they are kept in dry phase in the dry powder form, and at the time of delivery itself only they are reconstituted with the vehicle and then injected immediately. Okay. So dry powder for reconstitution as an injectable product may be produced by following methods. What are these methods? Aseptic crystallization and dry powder filling. Second is spray drying, and third is freeze drying. So these are the three aspects we will be also be discussing in our series of lectures, spray drying and freeze drying exclusively. But these are the three methods, major methods of dry powder manufacturing. Aseptic crystallization is the first method. Let's take this method. You will take drug and the solvent, the API and the solvent. API will be dissolved into the solvent. Then non-solvent is added there. Crystallization occurs. Thereafter, you will collect the crystals. Milling and blending is done, and the powder obtained is packaged simply aseptically. Okay, this is called aseptic crystallization. This is the first method. Now we are moving to the next method, spray drying. Spray drying, as the name suggests, you are just drying a spray. What is this? That sterile filtered solution of drug. Sterile filtered solution of drug is metered into the drying chamber, where it passes through an atomizer. It is passing through the atomizer, and that creates an aerosol of small droplets of liquids. Okay, you are you are blowing the sterile filter solution of drug and atomizing it, and it is being dried simultaneously. The aerosol comes into contact with the stream of hot sterile gas. Usually it is hot air, dry hot air. The solvent evaporates quickly, allowing drug to be collected as a powder, and is coming in the form of a powder from the bottom in the form of a uniform hollow spheres. The powder is then filled into the vials. What is happening? That they actually, what is happening that is, say for example, this is a drug core. Okay, drug core. So it is having the solvent. So what is solvent? It's outer, in the outer crust, the solvent is removed. Okay, so only at the last, in between this in the hollow, why they are found in the hollow one? Because the in the inner core, at the last moment, the last traces of the solvent are blown out, leaving behind a hollow sphere. So these are hollow sphere powders which are having good free flowing property and good solubility. So spray dried products, that's why they are quite wonderful with respect to the quality of the product. Okay, now moving to the next topic or next method of dry powder manufacturing is freeze drying. You will take the drug solution into the vial. These filled vials are kept into the freeze dryer, and the freezing of solution is done to -30 to -40 degrees Celsius. Vacuum is applied, whatever required, and the lyophilization is done, and the lyophilized product is collected and packaged. Okay, and remember, the packaging is the integral part in the case of freeze drying. As always, you will have to take out the product only after the packaging. Otherwise, what is happening that at the moment when the freeze dried product come into the contact of the normal environment, it absorbs the moisture from the air, and it may be damp there. So you will have to take care of this thing when you are preparing the dry powder through the freeze drying. Okay. So to ensure the product meets the required quality, each manufacturing process should be validated to be sure that it is accomplishing what is intended to do. That is called validation. That sterile product validation must be done when you are going for the parenteral manufacturing. FDA provides certain guidelines for current good manufacturing practices for finished for pharmaceuticals under CFR section 211 and its subsections for detailed requirements. What are these? The CFR 211.25. It describes the personal qualification requirement based on education, experience and training for the job. CFR 211.8, 0.84 and 0.86, they provide the ingredients used in product compounding meet the required identity, quality and purity. So this is the listing of CFRs, and then at last CFR 211.63, 0.65, 0.67, 0.68 and 0.182. They provide the validation requirement for processes and equipment used. Okay, you have got, whenever you get the time, please go through, especially if you are aiming for going for the pharma industry, you must go through these CFR. Okay, CFR 211.42, 0.46, 0.56 and 0.113. They provide the requirement for the production environment, preventing any contamination. While in case of CFR 211.160, 0.165 and 0.167, it provides the requirements for quality control procedures ensuring the finished product have the required potency, purity and quality until the expiration date. So this is the listing of CFRs giving the different guidelines for different aspects of pharmaceutical parental manufacturing. Okay. Now moving to the large volume parentals. Large volume parentals may be electrolyte solutions like 0.9% sodium chloride isotonic solution, 0.45 and 3% sodium chloride solution. They may be 20 to 40 milliequivalent per liter potassium chloride, Ringer's lactate solution, etc. Carbohydrate solution, it may be dextrose 5% in water. Okay. Nutritional proteins, they may be like 2.5 to 10% synthetic amino acid mixture used in patient with starvation, renal, hepatic failure or other conditions. So large volume parentals, as we discussed, they are used for parental nutrition. Okay, like emulsion we discussed. Peritoneal dialysis. Dialysis solution contains large volumes of dextrose to remove waste such as urea and potassium from the blood. Irrigation or washing solutions. These come in the various formulations and differ from injectable solution with the package closure. Irrigating solutions have a screw cap that twisted open. Irrigating solutions must be sterile, pyrogen and particulate free. Now, the third criteria, the modified release or sustained release injectables, however, it is an entirely different domain. There may be various types of modified release injectables, but to name a few, polymeric implants, they may be microspheres, okay, and many more they may be, depending upon the novel technology adopted. The modified release injectables may be of various types. So this was all about the various aspects we studied, okay, for the pharmaceutical parenteral manufacturing. You can go through these further readings for your reference. Okay. So dear friends, dear students, let me summarize you what we have learned in this lecture. We learned the various types of parenteral products, their basic properties, okay, and how they are affecting particle size, syringeability, injectability, globule size. We studied the various methods used in the preparation of different parenteral products like solutions, suspension, emulsion, dry powders. Okay, especially I would like to focus that you must learn these different techniques which we have mentioned for solution, suspension, emulsion, and dry powders separately, especially when we discuss about the dry powder techniques, okay, freeze drying, spray drying. So you must have pinpointly, you must remember what are the specific advantage of a specific technique. Say for example, what are the advantages of spray dried products? For the dry, they are as we have discussed, they are having good belt density, they are having good free flowing property because they are hollow spherical dry particles. Freeze dried products are very wonderful because they are not having they are also having the very free flowing property. But you just have to go through the further reading links and just cover them up to ensure that you learn the advantages as well as the limitations of each and every technique of preparing and manufacturing the pharmaceutical parenteral products, and by that only we can learn these things. So thank you for being with us. We will be covering the other aspects of pharmaceutical parenteral dosage forms in our previous lecture. Thank you for being with us. Thanks a lot. Happy learning.